Well, it's a special Easter episode, that's right. Coming up right now on the Chuckwagon Cowboy Show. Howdy y'all, welcome to our special Easter episode of the Chuckwagon Cowboy Show, hosted by yours truly, Chef Ron Locke. That's right, we have a special Easter episode that we have in store for you on this episode of the Chuckwagon Cowboy Show, because we're not only doing one recipe, we're going to be doing two recipes for you on this episode. Now, our first recipe is going to be a fantastic cheesy scallop potatoes and bacon. You are going to love seeing this. We're going to be doing that in a little bit here. But first, we're going to go to the star of our show, our ham, and we're going to be doing a fantastic orange bourbon glazed ham for you. It is going to be yee haw yum, let me tell you. So we got a lot of cooking to do on this episode, so I'm going to cut the chitter chat and we're going to get right to the food, alright? So first off here, I've got Mr. Ham. Now, Mr. Ham is a 6-pound spiral fully cooked ham, and I like that for two reasons. Now, I like it first of all because it's fully cooked. You got less cooking time because you got some hungry family, friends, and loved ones that are just chomping at the bit to get at that table and eat. So it really takes a lot less time to make them when they're fully cooked than you have to get the ones that are not cooked at all. Now, the second reason I like it so much is because it's spiraled, and that makes the cutting very, very simple, very minor. Again, saves time and gets people to commencing to eat. It's just a real nice convenience. So if you can get yourself one of these, that is the ticket. That is the ticket, all right? Now, you first want to go ahead and preheat your oven to 325 degrees. And go ahead and get yourself a roasting pan that's got a rack in the middle of it here. And then what you want to go ahead and do is take your ham and you just want to take off the packaging. Now, a lot of those will come with a glaze. Now, we don't want to use that glaze. We got our own glaze that we're going to be showing you in just a bit here. So go ahead and take your ham, and then once you get it fully unwrapped, go ahead and slip it on top of your rack here. You want to put it spiral side down, just like we have here. Okay, you want to have the fat side up. That's where we're going to be glazing. That's where all that nice glaze is going to go when this is finally done. Alright, now if you don't have a meat thermometer, an electronic meat thermometer, please invest in one, or make that a gift that somebody can give you on some special event for the year, because that is almost a necessity these days in the kitchen, okay? I mean, if you don't have one of those, at least get yourself one of those probe thermometers that you stick in to check the time when it's ready to possibly come out. You know, when you get it to the right temperature, you know what I'm talking about, the manual one you just pop in. But it really makes sense for a few extra dollars to go ahead and get yourself an electronic meat thermometer like we have here. Now, if you have one of those, go ahead at this point, then you want to go ahead and you want to take that and put the probe in the thickest part of your ham, alright? We've gone ahead and done that right here. And you also want to make sure you leave the connection undone, and then set your thermometer controller over to the side of your oven, because that's what you'll plug it into when you put it into the oven, which is what we'll do here in just a second. So, the only other thing that we got to talk about with this before we put this into our oven is that some people like to cover it with aluminum foil, tent it a little bit, and some don't. Now, I do this particular recipe uncovered, and because we're cooking it at a slower heat. Alright, so we're not even going to worry about covering this, and usually it cooks about 20 minutes per pound, but again, really don't go by the time as much as you want to go by the temperature, which would be an internal temperature of 140 degrees at serving time, alright? So, without that, any other further ado here, we're going to go ahead and take a little break. I'm going to go ahead and slide this into our oven, and then we're going to come back for our first of two ingredient roundups and get some fantastic orange bourbon glaze made for our ham that we'll be putting on a little bit later, alright? So you got to come on back and check this out.
You are watching WYE the Network.
Welcome back to the Chuckwagon Cowboy Show. Now, we're going to go ahead over to our ingredient roundup and show you what is going into our fantastic orange bourbon glaze that's going on this ham in just a bit. All right, so let's walk on over here and see what's going on. Well, we've only got 4 ingredients here. This is probably one of the lesser of our ingredient roundups with ingredients that we've had in a long time. So let's get started and show you. First of all, we've got here a 1/3 cup of brown sugar. Now make sure you pack that down when you put that, when you're measuring that out. So you've got 1/3 packed cup of brown sugar. All right. Next, you've got here 1/3 cup of bourbon whiskey. We gonna have some fun with this glaze now, I'm telling you. All right. Next here we've got 1 tablespoon of orange marmalade, and I'm telling you, the orange marmalade and the bourbon go so good. Those flavors, when you mix them together, they just mix together so well. And lastly here, we've got 1/8 teaspoon of cloves, ground cloves, and 1/4 teaspoon of allspice. And that just really makes this whole glaze pop. All these ingredients are standalone Yee Haw Yums, but you get these all together, I'm telling you, when you simmer this, we're going to be doing this here in the next segment, when you get this on the stove and simmer this, your house is going to smell fantastic. And you got that ham going on top of it. Ooh, it is going to be good. So let's take a little break here so I can go ahead and get set up over on the stove top here. And we're going to just show you real quick how to go ahead and put these together and simmer this into a little saucepan. And then after that, we've got a fantastic cheesy scallop potatoes and bacon recipe that we're going to do for you right after that. So come on back, you can't miss this. Well, welcome back to the Chuckwagon Cowboy Show. You can see now we've got our stovetop cam here right zeroed in on our small saucepan. So that's the first thing you want to go ahead and do is get yourself a nice small saucepan. Also go ahead and preheat your stovetop to a simmer. On mine it's about a 2, which is probably a little above between 9 and 10 o'clock on a clock. All right. Now we're going to add our 4 ingredients in at this point. First thing we want to do is go ahead and add our bourbon in. Now you hear that? Oof. That's smoking. That's some strong bourbon, right? All right. Next thing you want to go ahead and do is add in your orange marmalade. All right. Your 1 tablespoon, which is what we're doing here. Just like that. Come on now. All right. And then next, what you're going to hold. Now we'll add the dry ingredients in next. Let's go ahead and add in our in here. I'm trying to do 2 things at once here. Go ahead and add in your brown sugar, your 1/3 cup of brown sugar there. And then lastly, we're going to go ahead and add in our allspice and our cloves. All right, our ground cloves and our allspice. And that's basically it. Now, what we want to first go ahead and do is I'm just going to go ahead and stir this up a little bit like so. All right, just like that. Now, what I'm going to eventually do here is whisk this together. So I'm going to let this take a little bit of time to get thickened up here. I'm going to go ahead and grab my whisk in a bit, and we're going to come back here in just a second. I'm going to show you after about 10 minutes or so how this looks when you have all these great flavors that are melting together and getting into a fantastic glaze. So come on back in just a second. Welcome back to the Chuckwagon Cowboy Show. Now you can see here the glaze is just got a little bit of a bubble going on here, and what we want to go ahead and do here is just continue to whisk this. Now this is just at about 15 minutes, and this is just at about the time you want to put this on the lowest simmer possible. We just want to keep it warm so don't get too thick. You can see it's gotten a little thicker here from the heating process. The also important thing about the heating process is it burns the liquor off, it burns the alcohol off of the bourbon, so there are no intoxicating properties in this. Yeah, I know, I'm sorry. Some of you are probably going, "Aw," but that is the way it is. We don't want our guests to be inebriated when they're enjoying their ham. I'm sure there's other ways that can be accomplished, but not through our glaze. So that's pretty much it. That's all you're really going to have there. Now we're just going to go ahead and set this and keep this on simmer until we're ready to glaze our ham, which we'll do when our ham reaches 130 degrees. And that's probably about 20 minutes before it's going to be done. So that will do at that point. Now, we're going to come up next and we're going to go ahead and show you our ingredient roundup for our cheesy scalloped potatoes with bacon. Alright, so come on back. the Chuckwagon Cowboy Show. Well, we're ready for ingredient roundup number 2, which is our cheesy scalloped potatoes with bacon. So let's get started and we'll show you what's going into that, alright? First off, and I'm going to try to show you this here, I've got 4 cups of sliced potatoes. Now I like to use russet potatoes because they've got a medium starch consistency, which is good, and also they're really easy to slice thin. I like them a lot. Now if you prepare your potatoes early and you want to keep them nice and bright and white, go ahead and get an ice bath. What you do basically is go ahead and get yourself a big bowl, put some ice cubes in it, some water, and go ahead and set your potatoes in that. And you just go ahead and drain that water out when you're ready to use your potatoes, but it keeps them nice and white. If you don't mind having brown potatoes, that's alright. But some people are a little funny about that. In the end, it ain't gonna matter, they're all gonna cook the same. But just for those of you who kind of get turned off by that brown color, that's a little tip from Chef Ron Locke to you, alright? Alright, let's keep going here. We've got here 1 cup or 8 ounces of cream cheese. Now you see I cubed that up. That's going to make it easier when I introduce that into our sauce here in just a bit, and I'll explain that when we do that. Alright, next here I've got 2 1/3 cup of milk. I have 3/4 to a cup of cheese. I add between 3/4 a cup to a cup. I add a little more in case I want a little bit more to sprinkle on top at the end. Again, I'll show you what I'm talking about when we get to that point. Alright. I have here 3 tablespoons of all-purpose flour. I've got here 2 tablespoons of butter. I have here a 1/2 cup of bacon that's been cooked and diced up. I have here a mixture of 1 teaspoon of salt and pepper. And lastly, we've got 2 teaspoons of Worcestershire sauce. Those are all the ingredients that are going to be going into our cheesy scalloped potatoes with bacon. Now what we're going to do is, again, take a break. We're going to mosey on back over to our stovetop, get our stove cam ready, and we're going to go ahead and show you how to prepare this great side dish for our ham. So come on back. Well, welcome back to the Chuckwagon Cowboy Show. Now you see we've got our stovetop cam in front of our large skillet. Now you want to go ahead and put your oven to about medium, and you want to get a nice large skillet like we got here, because this is what's going to hold our cheesy scalloped potatoes with bacon. The first thing you want to go ahead and do is put in your 2 tablespoons of butter, like so, just like that. Get that melted up a little bit. And then let's stir that around a bit here. Once we get that nice and melted, we're going to go ahead and add our flour and make a little bit of a roux. And that's basically what roux is flour and butter. And that is usually the staple for making a lot of great sauces. And so we're going to be doing that here. Alright, our butter is just about ready here. I'm going to go ahead and add in my flour, my 3 tablespoons of flour, like so. And you just want to stir this now. Okay, you see what I'm doing? I'm stirring this. Just like this, and you want to get it nice and pasty like we got right here. Alright, normally only takes a minute or 2 to do this. It don't take long at all. That's why you don't want to put this at too high heat, because this serves as your base for the sauces that we're going to be making here for our scalloped cheese, our cheesy scalloped potatoes. I'm watching what I'm doing and I'm talking at the same time. You know how hard that is sometimes. Alright, we've got that pretty good there already. See how fast that was? Less than a minute. Now we're going to slowly add in our 2 1/3 cups of milk, and I mean slowly, okay? Like so. Okay, just like this. And you want to stir that around a little bit. Okay, you don't want to burn the milk. Alright, so we need to get things going here, like so. Add some more in. Okay, just like that. Okay, and stir some more in. All this is going to come together here as we get this going. Alright, just like that. You want to at least get enough on the bottom of your pan so it doesn't burn too much. And like I said, right now we've got it a little bit, I'd say probably about 7 o'clock on a clock. It's a little less than medium, because I don't want to boil this just yet. We're going to be boiling this, but not just yet. Okay? So, you see all these little clumps of roux that are in here, they're all going to go ahead and congeal together with everything else once we get all the other ingredients in here. Okay? And let's add some more milk in. Alright, like that. Alright, we Probably got one more little segment of milk, but you want to do this in stages because you want to get this to start thickening up a little bit, okay? And you'll see what I'm talking about here. Let's see here. Just like that. All right. And we'll add a little bit more, our last little segment of that. Let's go ahead and do that. There we go. There's our 2 1/3 cups of milk that are fully into our large skillet. Now this is going to be one of the bases here for our cheesy scallop potatoes with bacon, okay? And you just want to keep whisking this, all right? Use a whisk. Make sure you use a whisk because you want to bring some air into this sauce that we're doing, okay? And you'll start to see, again, these clumps will get less and less and less as we go through the whole process. We got a lot of ingredients to put in here before we're all done. And there's going to be some cooking time too, all right? So we've got that going. Now let me go ahead and add in our Worcestershire sauce here. Give that a little color, and also our salt and pepper. Now that's to taste, you know, one teaspoon of each. If you want more, as you get into the process of doing your scalloped potatoes, the sauce for that, you can add in more. I think 1 teaspoon of each is pretty sufficient. You know, I also put all the condiments and salt and pepper, all that on the table, so if people want to jazz their own up a little bit more, they can do it at that time too. Now you see we're starting to get this sauce going here, okay? Now, what we want to do is we want to go ahead and put this to a boil. So I'm going to go ahead and push this up about another 2 spots on my oven. It's about a medium high, okay? And so we're going to go ahead and let this boil. It's going to take about 5 minutes to do so, all right? So let's go ahead and see what happens. Alright, now you can see after 5 minutes it's boiling, it's got some nice boil to it, and it's getting very thick. And that's what we want, that nice thick consistency, alright? So now what we're going to go ahead and do is add in our cream cheese cubes like we're going to do right here. Now what we want to do here is just get these to where this cream cheese is smooth, alright? So let's go ahead and start stirring this in. This will take a couple minutes here. Won't take long at all. And then what we'll do is go ahead and add in our potatoes, and then we'll add in our bacon. And then we get to let this sit for a bit. I'll go over that in just a second. This shouldn't take too long here. This is a pretty hot pan. So this cheese should get smooth quickly. Now I said earlier when I was showing you the cubes, the cream cheese cubes in our ingredient roundup and why I cubed them, you know, you don't want to really throw the whole 8-ounce package of cream cheese in your saucepan here, or in your sauce, in your skillet, because it's going to take longer for it to melt and to get nice and creamy. If you've got them in cubes, you're evenly distributing the heat that it will take to get them to that nice and creamy point. Now you see, it don't take long. A lot of that's already gone. Now you just got to make sure though you constantly stir your sauce. You can't, this ain't something that you just put on the stove and get to when you get to. That's the one thing with sauces. Sauces generally, you need to really be on your ball and get this stirred up, because you leave this go without stirring, because you're dealing with heats. You're dealing with high heat, and you're also dealing with a lot of dairy and creams and such. It's going to scald. It will burn on the bottom, and I'm telling you, there is nothing worse than having burnt sauces. It is just, it's not good. It is not a good thing. Now you see how nice and creamy this is getting, right? Okay? I think we're about ready to introduce our potatoes. Now what I'm going to do at this point, I'm going to turn this down to simmer, alright? Because this is going to have to simmer for about 20 minutes. And so I don't need this to cook any hotter, because you can see we have a great sauce going on already. Alright, we haven't even put that cheese in here. That happens at the end of this, but I mean already you can see how nice this sauce is looking. Alright, so that's good. I just want to wait until this stops bubbling, because I don't want this to burn, and it's going to take a little bit to get the potatoes in here. So let's do that. I think that should be good. Let's see. That should be good. Yeah, let me turn that down just a little bit more. A little bit of bubbling ain't going to be bad, but you don't want it to be, you know, roaring and boiling, that's for sure. Alright, I think we're good here for the moment. I'm going to go ahead now and let me add my potatoes in. Now I've got my potatoes. They've already been drained of all that ice water that's kept them. You see how nice and light they are. It kept them from browning, which is good. And like I said, you know, four cups of potatoes works really well in this recipe. It works really well. And you want to make sure you get as much of the water out as possible. Okay, there, that's good. There's our potatoes right there. Now let's go ahead and add our bacon along with this. Ooh, I love my bacon. Now let's go ahead and stir this up. Let's go ahead and whisk, just going to whisk this in. Okay, you see what we're going to do here. Just go ahead and whisk this all together. And what we're going to do now is we're going to go ahead and get this all nicely stirred. We're going to go ahead and keep this simmering for about 20 minutes. We're going to cover this and then let it simmer for about 20 minutes to give these potatoes time to cook and get nice and tender. And then we're going to go ahead and add in some wonderful cheese. All right? Well, here we are at 20 minutes and our cheesy scalloped potatoes with bacon look fantastic. They've simmered down really nice. I can tell just by pushing in. I can see that the potatoes are nice and flexible, which means they are cooked. They are good. It smells just wonderful. You've got this going on with your ham and other sides that you might have for your Easter meal, and I'm telling you, it is just great. But we ain't done yet. We ain't done yet because we got to add in our last ingredient, which is which I use is shredded cheese. Yeah, shredded cheese, grated or shredded cheese. And I like to use the sharp cheddar is what I like to use the best. You can use any kind of cheese you want for this final piece. Now we're going to use half of this and we're going to mix this in with our scalloped potatoes here. Okay, that's about half right there. Let me go ahead and stir this in. And what you want to do now basically is you want to leave this uncovered at a very low simmer. You just want to basically keep this warm until you're ready to serve this to your family, friends, and loved ones. Now you just want to get this mixed in really well and represented with everything in this skillet. And it'll melt real quick. In fact, I don't even see where it is anymore, but it's going to give a great flavor, let me tell you. All right, let me just mix that. All right, now what I want to do is I want to layer this out flat as our final thing that we're going to do here, because what I'm going to do next is the topping for this. Here we go. And that is going to be the rest of our cheese. And all you're going to do is just go ahead and sprinkle this on top, just like this. Alright, just like that. Now, you know, again, the recipe calls for 3/4 of a cup. You can go ahead and use a little more if you want a little more cheese on. You can use a cup and a half, and then just split it up. It just depends on how much cheese you like. I like enough just to give it a flavor. I don't want the cheddar cheese to overpower the goodness that's already in here. You see, it's just kind of melting nice on it, and that's what we want, is it just to melt on top. And again, we'll just leave this on a low simmer, uncovered, until we're ready to serve this. And that's your recipe right there. There is your cheesy scalloped potatoes with bacon right there. Now before we get to our final presentation, I want to just talk a little bit about the recipes and give you a couple little tips and some notes that I haven't had a chance to tell you because I haven't really been on camera much for this episode. It's all been about the stovetop here, which is great because that's what you're watching for. You want to see good food and how it's made, right? Alright, well, now that you have me, I'm going to go ahead and give you a couple notes about some things. Well, first of all, you see my sleeves are rolled up. I hadn't even gotten a chance to even tell you like I normally do on every episode. And of course you want to make sure that your kitchen environment's nice and clean, your hands are nice and clean, all the things I always tell you, right? Alright, well let's get into the ingredients, let's get into the recipes. Now the first thing I want to talk about is our orange bourbon glaze that we made here on the stove, our first recipe we made. Now you first want to make sure that that gets to 15 minutes in a simmer, like I said before, and you want to get that nicely stirred up, whisked up. Now, if you want a little thicker glaze to put on your ham, go ahead and just turn off the heat for about 5 minutes. It'll thicken up a little bit, and it'll be nice and thick to put on your ham if you want. You know, it's up to you. If you want a thinner glaze, that's fine. If you want a thicker glaze, that's the way to do it. Just let it cool off a little bit. I wouldn't say no more than 5 minutes though, okay? And you also want to do this at roughly about 20 minutes before your ham is done. What that equates to probably in temperature would be about 15 degrees before you pull it out. So say you let your ham cook at 135, 140 degrees, right? Okay, so at 120, 125 degrees, you just go ahead and pull that out, put some of that glaze on, and just let it finish its job, all right? You'll have a wonderful, wonderful ham. This house smells so good, you know. And we got our cheesy scalloped potatoes with bacon behind us here, simmering away, waiting for our guests to go ahead and chow down on that. Now, a couple points on that I wanted to bring to your attention too. First of all, always make sure you're stirring that in the first probably 3/4 of this recipe, because you're dealing with sauce and you're dealing with higher heats. And if you walk away and you're not constantly stirring that, whisking that up at first, it's going to burn on the bottom. And I'm telling you what, there's nothing worse than burnt sauce. If you've ever experienced it, you know what I'm talking about. So, you know, you just got to make sure you attend to it. It's not hard at all. You see how very easy it was. You just got to keep stirring it, that's all. And then, you know, secondly too, you look at the salt and pepper factor in that sauce too. And I'll say the Worcestershire sauce too. Wait until after everything is done, okay, and you've got your cheese on top and you've got your cheese simmering in there. Then go ahead and take a teaspoon, just taste it, all right? Give it a taste. Get all your flavors in there, and then see if it needs a little bit more salt and pepper. You probably won't need to, because what's happened is all these great ingredients, through all this simmering and this boiling and all these different processes in the 40 minutes it takes to make this, have all congealed together, and that salt in a lot of that has come together, the bacon, all the different ingredients, the cheeses. So you won't probably need to salt or pepper it any more than what you have. But if you need to, go ahead. Worcestershire sauce, same thing. If you want to pop a couple more drops of that in, that's fine too. Whatever it is to your flavor in the end. Alright, just a little tip on that as well. Oh, and with the ham too, one more thing I want to talk about is putting water in your roasting pan. Now, I put about 2 cups of water in the bottom. I'll tell you 2 reasons for that. Number one, the vapors, when this is cooking, the vapors from the water add to the moistness of this ham, because you're laying that ham flat down. All that goodness and that meat is on the bottom, so you want to keep that moist, and that water helps with that, all right? Secondly, I like to go ahead and use the juices for things later on. I'll freeze the juices, add it to soups, or I may make a gravy or another sauce out of that, and that's just great stuff to have too on hand. So a couple of reasons why you might want to add maybe 2 cups of water to the bottom of your roasting pan. Alright, so just a couple little tips on all that, and I wanted to just visit with you because I felt lonely out there. I just didn't get on here much. I was working away here on the stovetop, and I just wanted to talk to y'all for a second. So with that said, we're going to take a break. We're going to go ahead and set up, because everything is just about done here. We're going to go ahead and set up a presentation plate for you. Before that, we're just going to go ahead and show you our ham and how that all turned out. And then we're going to go ahead and take some taste of our ham, our orange bourbon glazed ham, and our creamy, cheesy scalloped potatoes with bacon, alright? So you gotta come back and see the final presentation, alright? We'll see you in a bit. Welcome back to the Chuckwagon Cowboy Show. Now, before we do our final presentation plate, I just wanted to go ahead and introduce the star of our show here, our orange bourbon glazed ham. Now, don't that look fantastic? I'm telling you what, the water underneath really adds a great vapor layer to the bottom of this ham, which is now the top of this ham once we've turned it over. And it is just succulent and moist. I can just tell by looking at it, this is going to be a Yee Haw Yum ham, let me tell you. It is cooked to perfection. You've got that glaze, that orange bourbon glaze that's around it. You can see that nice sheen to the ham itself. Everything is just cooked to perfection. Went ahead and gone and put it on a serving platter with some endive and a little bit of orange slices around it. Since it's orange bourbon glazed ham, why not add a little orange to our flavor and our presentation as well, all right? So let's go ahead to our presentation plate and test this all out. Well, here I am in front of my presentation plate here. We have a nice setup here. We've gone ahead and put a little endive and some oranges on the plate, and we've got our orange bourbon glazed ham and our cheesy scalloped potatoes with bacon on it. It smells so good in this house. I'm telling you, my friends, family, and loved ones are going to go nuts when they come over and smell this great food here shortly. But for now, we're going to go ahead and get a special taste to make sure it's all just perfect. All right, so I got my fork. Let's go ahead and try. We're going to go ahead and try the ham here first. Let me get a little piece here. That gets a YEE HAW YUM! Oh my goodness. You talk about succulent ham. You talk about off the bone ham. This ham is so moist and tender. Again, using the vapors from the water underneath in connection with that meat just really steams in all those wonderful flavors. I'm telling you, I could taste that orange bourbon glaze infused with this ham. The crust is just wonderful. I can't rave enough about it, obviously. I do like this, but I'm telling you what, if I have never tried this and I went to somebody's house and had this, this would still get a YEE HAW YUM, let me tell you. Now, let's go ahead and try our cheesy scalloped potatoes with bacon. I want to make sure I get a nice piece here with lots of bacon. Oh, this is a big piece. This may take me a second. Hold on. Oh my goodness. One of my favorite sides that I love for Easter, and that gets an infusion. YEE HAW YUM! The cheese. I don't know what hits you first. I think it's the cheese and the bacon kind of together. And I'm telling you, you like bacon? Oh my God, you are gonna love this recipe. You like cheese? Oh my God, you are really gonna love this recipe because the first thing you taste is cheese. You've got that cheddar cheese in there, in the sauce. You've got cream cheese in there, in the sauce. You've got cheddar cheese on top of everything. Oh my. If you love cheese, like I said, you're gonna go crazy. The potatoes are so cooked to perfection. They're tender and they're not mushy at all. They're nice and tender, but they got a little bit of a crisp to it, but not an undercooked crisp. If you know what I'm talking about. If you've ever had good scalloped potatoes, this is the recipe to go for. It is fantastic. That bacon just adds to these flavors, you know, and you've got the Worcestershire sauce that just, again, gives a hint of another flavor, the salt, the pepper. And you've got the milk, and you've got that roux that we started out with. Everything just works so well with this recipe. I'm telling you what, this is going to be a great Easter. I'm getting goosebumps. It's just great. I love it. It's probably one of my favorite foods, actually. So give these a try. Give these a try. And if you do, let me know how you liked it. All right? I'd appreciate it. Well, that is all the time that we have for on this special Easter episode of the Chuckwagon Cowboy Show. I really want to thank you again for coming out each week and watching these shows and supporting us. And I really hope that when you watch these shows that you take something away from them and that you learn something, because that's what I'm here to do. That's what we're here to do, is to teach you, to show you some great recipes, and hopefully get you more comfortable in the kitchen. Okay? All right. Well, this is Chef Ron Locke. First, I'm going to say Happy Easter to each and every one of you out there personally. And one more thing. What is that I usually say at the end? Oh yeah. Get off that couch and get cooking! We'll see you next time.